All right, welcome back, True Seeker. It is February 26, 2023. 30 years ago today was the 93 World Trade Center bombing. But what I want to talk about today is the contriving of racism in the media. And again, it's been a really interesting thing to witness if you're around my age. Again, I was born in 1983. Seemingly, we were coming up in this age where we had overcome racism. You know, the past of racism and segregation and discriminating based on skin color. It seemed like it was a thing of the past. And then what was amazing is 10 years after Tupac's song Changes, where he says, "We still ain't seen a black president," exactly 10 years after that song was released, Obama won the election, the nation's first black president. It seemed like it was all part of the course of what was going on, just racial relations improving. And then, amazingly, in the time of Obama being in president, the media began this hyper-focus on racism, and especially through government agencies like the police and their discrimination and unlawful beatings and killings of black men, which, as we know, brought about Black Lives Matter, which was more recently catapulted with the George Floyd killing by a police officer. And now the media makes it seem like there's never been more racism, like we're living in the most racist period in American history. And again, what's happening in the media is separate from most of our lives. Most of us in our lives, we're not actually seeing acts of racism. Some people might be taking on these media stories and then making it part of their life and acting like there's more racism than there is. But there's a reason the media is working in overdrive to divide us, and there is a reason that they did it when they gave us the first black president. Again, these people are clever manipulators, and they're constantly playing with the minds of Americans through mass media, which they control. And when I say they, I'm talking about the Jesuit order, and you can prove all day that it is the Jesuits doing this. And again, George Orwell's 1984. Understand, George Orwell was a member of the Fabian Society, which was created in 1884. And if you don't know what the Fabian Society is, look into it. But very much a think tank, a group of cultural manipulators, if you will. But George Orwell wrote such an accurate novel in 1984 because he was part of this powerful society that was the machine, or part of the machine, plotting the way to manipulate the minds of people. So he knew how to write a book about this that goes down as fiction, but was really a warning for the type of world that was being built around us. And if you've never read 1984, it's largely about a populace of people who are controlled through screens, and the screen is always, putting fear in the minds of the viewer. It's always putting misinformation in there. It's always changing the past and history, and it's teaching the world to think in opposites. Again, a motto from the book 1984 is, "War is peace." Think about that nation, right? The military department calls itself what? The Department of Defense. And it's always on the offensive, but it calls itself the Department of Defense. Freedom is slavery. Kind of interesting because in America, we claim to be the most free people there ever were, but really, none of us have been free really since the beginning, but especially since we got put into slave school in kindergarten. Again, that wasn't your choice. That was required by the state that's teaching you about freedom. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. And again, you go to slave school, and do they really teach you about anything that you actually need to know to benefit in this world? I would actually say the answer to that question is a little, but it's like, if there's things you need to know in this world, like imagine a pie chart, that there's things you need to know in this world to benefit, they're teaching you a small sliver of what you really need to know. They're not teaching you anything about nutrition and health. They're not teaching you anything about, being smart in the decisions you make in life, financially and otherwise, especially financially. That they teach us to be useful idiots so that we can get taken advantage of by the corporations and banks that own this nation and literally create the textbooks that we learn from in slave school. If you don't know that, look into the textbooks in school and look what companies are behind those textbooks and choosing what is in there, what information is in those books. They want a society of useful idiots. So, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Opposites, but really also clearly paralleled to this nation we live in. Of course, you learn Gematria, you realize United States of America equals 84, like Jesuit. 1984, the book. You know, we just had Anthony Fauci telling us all in opposites of what we should really, everything that we should have really been doing. Anthony Fauci, head of NIH since 1984, a Jesuit, was telling you to do the exact opposite. And in fact, if you went and took his own words from what he said before the pandemic, you saw that he was teaching you everything the opposite of what he had prior put out in his time in NIH as the head of that sector of government. But anyway, here's what it also looks like. This headline yesterday at the 54th NAACP social, or what do they call it, Image Awards, Benjamin Crump says he is never going to stop fighting racism and discrimination, you know, and he won an award for the Social Justice Impact Award of the Year. Benjamin Crump, you could argue right now, is... Again, there's people behind him, right? So you couldn't say that but in terms of the faces of the people in the media, you could say that Benjamin Crump easily right now is the biggest instigator of racism and division in this country. Of course, there's people behind him, so there really are bigger entities, but in terms of the face, that's who he is. There's no way he could ever be like given this award by reasonable people, because reasonable people see what Benjamin Crump's doing. He's going and participating in every psychological operation there is to bring about this division and chaos that they want. And again, this guy's been connected to every case since Trayvon Martin. And again, Michael Brown, all of them, up to Tyree Nichols most recently. He's been connected to all of these made-for-TV psychological operations that are meant to divide us. And again, as we've been tracking all of them, they're all perfect rituals by the numbers. Again, George Orwell did not name his book a number by accident. Numbers are the language of the Cabal. Cabal comes from Kabbalah. Kabbalah comes from Jewish mysticism. That Jewish mysticism has spread to other sects of society, including the Catholic Church, which brought back the knowledge after the Crusades with the Templars. Kabbalah's code says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. Putting those things together is Gematria. These people use this code every day in every last news media propaganda story and every last ritual like this. Case in point, Benjamin Crump gets this award on the 139th day of his age. What does his name equal in Gematria? 139, like Freemasonry. His name also equals 58, which is another number over all these rituals. Tyree Nichols was a huge 58 rituals we just talked about. Again, if you're new here, Gematria's ABC is 1, 2, 3, up to Z, the 26 letters, 26. It's also using that order with numerology, which is how you get 139, 58. It's 58 when you use numerology. But day after day, and I've talked about these numbers a million times with Benjamin Crump over the years, but now he's getting this award. And for the person who's saying, well, wait a minute, I thought you said it's the Jesuits, now you're talking about Freemasonry. Understand, but modern Freemasonry is a creation of the Jesuit order. So Freemasonry you can look at as a subsect of the Jesuits. And you can look at the Jesuits as an order of the Catholic Church because, again, all roads do lead to Rome. We're on their calendar. We're on a calendar named after the Pope. Again, 16th century. We got the calendar we're on. We got English with the vowels, 26-letter alphabet, spellings we use today. The original English script is credited to a Catholic monk, Burfirth of Ramsey Abbey from the year 1011 AD. Again, the same century the Jesuits were created, all of these things happened. Modern Freemasonry was created in the banking district of London, controlled by the Jesuits. Anyway, perfect rituals. And keep in mind, when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, America also equals 139, right? This guy is such a big name in America right now. He's connected to every civil rights case. And by the way, civil rights equals 64, just like how the first civil rights, or not the first, but the latest Civil Rights Act was in 64. Barack Hussein Obama, 64. Number 44, 44 years after the Civil Rights Act when MLK was killed on 4-4 and Malcolm X was killed on a date with 44 numerology. But again, for this guy to get an award, and it shows you what the NAACP is, right? And come on, NAACP, the Association for Colored People. You don't think that was created in the very beginning just to add to the division? You don't think Black History Month was created just to keep people in thinking of terms of in color of race? You know, Morgan Freeman on 60 Minutes years ago, I think it was Chris Wallace who interviewed him. It might have been somebody else. Whoever interviewed him, you know, was talking about race, and Morgan Freeman was talking about how he wished we would just stop thinking in terms of race and just look at each other as people. And he said, well, how do you feel about the term African American? And Morgan Freeman said back to him, he goes, well, do you want me to call you a European American? And then he kind of laughed. He's like, not really. He's like, yeah, and that's how I feel about being called African American. But again, they give us all these labels and terms and ideas and groups to keep us in groups. And then once they have us in the groups, then they, you know, sprinkle a little bit of this over here. Here's a Trayvon Martin story to provoke this group. You know, here's this story to provoke this group. You know, let's create another group. Blue Lives Matter. Let's have cops in their big trucks flying down the road with their new American flags with a blue stripe down the middle. That's, you know, some people are like, yeah, and then other people are getting provoked by that. They're like, that's a desecration of the flag. They're doing all of these little things to just keep everybody fighting. And it's so obvious. It's so obvious. Even before I knew Gematria, I just saw through all this crap. It's like, come on, man. What is Benjamin Crump doing for race relations? Nothing. All of these stories are obvious bullshit. And again, from the beginning, it's been secret societies, right? It was no secret in the beginning that Trayvon Martin's father was a Freemason, right? He's wearing his Freemason pin in the interviews. We've seen this so many times. Philando Castile in Minnesota, his uncle goes on the news. He's wearing his Freemason pin, right? Secret societies, rituals. Remember in that same cipher where Freemasonry and Benjamin Crump are 58, so is Tyree Nichols, so is Solomon's Temple, which is where all Freemasonry secrets are. If I didn't say so already, secret societies 58, so is Rosicrucian. The real King James was a Freemason and Rosicrucian who dropped dead at age 58 unexpectedly. Special number throughout history. And words like fraternal or 58 as in the Fraternal Order of Police, Derek Chauvin, 58, the George Floyd killer. The list goes on. There's a lot more to that point. But remember, just the whole recent thing with Tyree Nichols, which Benjamin Crump was a part of. The King of Tyre, spelled the same way as Tyree, Tyre. The King of Tyre, as Rambo, just so elegantly presented, is who commissioned the building of Solomon's Temple. So again, you can see how important Freemasonry is. And remember, Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation. This nation's capital is known as the Masonic City, named after the Freemason George Washington. But remember, the link with George Washington and the federal city, it moved to Georgetown, D.C., you know, the federal capital moved to the Georgetown area where the Jesuits have been since the beginning of this nation's creation. It's older than the nation. The capital moved to the Jesuit stronghold of Georgetown. And it's funny, I was just watching something this morning. I didn't realize that the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, is from Georgetown. But I was actually just listening to him speak this morning. And he was gloating about how America works, and his evidence that America works. He's like, think about it in the time of war, you know, viral outbreaks, contagion, Cold Wars. He's like, look at the way the market soars. This country works. I was like, listen to this psychopath. Yeah, you're getting super rich off this stuff, but I mean, I'll find the clip and we'll do this in another stream. I was just listening to this morning and I downloaded the whole stream. We'll play it later. But I was like, just listen to this guy. You just listed like all the worst things that can happen in the world and how much money can be made off it. And then you said America works. It's like, God. Okay, so when evil things happen, you get rich, so America works. And realize, you guys, that is the truth of this nation, though. That is the way America works. But he said it like emphatically, like it's a good thing. He's like, don't be discouraged by war and chaos and viral outbreak. That's where the money's to be made. And it is. And that's why this stuff is always going on in this world. Chaos makes these people money. This world runs on chaos. Again, that's why the motto, the Masonic and Jesuit motto is order out of chaos. You create problems, it brings about money. And it's because it's based on this. I mean, it's a system that they made, right? But in a way, it just seems so backwards. And it is. But it's like, here, you blow this building up over here, right? Because the whole system's based on banking and money. So if I blow up this building, first of all, money was made on that because that missile cost a lot. And that missile was paid for by the bank who loaned the money to the government to build the missile. So that was profitable, just blowing it up. Now they need even more money to rebuild what they blew up for whatever they want to build there now. That makes even more money, you know? And then they got so clever, they're like, man, we can influence the weather and create storms and like, you know, that dilapidated neighborhood over there. Imagine if we just wiped that thing out in a storm. I mean, people think it was an act of God, and then we can bring in, you know, that new condo project. Think about all the money we'll make off that. Again, but this is the world we live in. And, you know, Benjamin Crump, you know, and I mean, think about it. Black Lives Matter went and tore apart American cities, and you know, somehow, some way, in all this chaos, and I mean, it hasn't been good for everybody, right? For the common people, it hasn't really been that good. It's like you go to downtown to Portland, Oregon, probably the most hardest hit city from all the Black Lives Matter protesting, because most of it's been in, you know, boards. You know, oh, there used to be a store there. Now there used to be 5 stores on this block. Now it's just all boarded up. The same on this block over here. You know what's amazing? Like where Nordstrom is, which is a big corporation and retailer, like everything around Nordstrom in Portland is just like all boarded up and destroyed, but Nordstrom survived. And it's like, so what? Black Lives Matter didn't care about Nordstrom? The Antifa protesters just let Nordstrom go? And that should show you how targeted these things are too, right? Why would they not attack Nordstrom? They attacked all the smaller businesses around there. So they put out all the independent business owners got destroyed and it had to shut down, but Nordstrom rolled on. Anyway, what a ritual for Benjamin Crump on the 139th day of his age in the city where the capital is known as the Masonic City. And keep in mind, this was the 56th day of the year, and it should remind you that Black Lives Matter was painted on the streets of D.C., on Church Street, no less. Again, the Jesuits served the Roman Catholic Church. But on the 5th day of the 6th month, after a gazillion other 56 Black Lives Matter rituals that have happened 1,000 times over, as we've documented. But this was also on the 56th day of the year they did this. And in Gematria, Black Lives Matter in the same cipher word equals 56. Society of Jesus equals 56. Society of Jesus also equals 187. And the NAACP Social Justice Impact Award, which he got, equals 187. This was the 54th edition of the awards. Jesuit order equals 54. Big numbers with these orders. And for the record, the plural Freemasons equals 56, like Society of Jesus. Ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry also equals 187. And if you're new here, so does Washington, D.C. and George Washington. Again, a lot of overlaps with the Gematria for the Masons and the Jesuits, who are all part of one larger order. And again, the logical way to think about it is the Masons were traditionally builders, and all throughout this world, when you go into a town, I mean, how many towns have you been in your life where the nicest building in the town is, I'm going to let you think about it, you've been to towns all over the world, and so often the nicest town or the nicest building in the town, could be a small town, could be a big town, could be a big city, but the nicest, most impressive building is the Catholic Church. Builders, Masons, modern Freemasonry, a Jesuit creation who serve the church. The Black Panther Party, all of their original meetings in Catholic churches in the Bay Area, which is named, San Francisco is named after St. Francis of Assisi, just like how the first Jesuit Pope is named after St. Francis of Assisi. But yes, Benjamin Crump, you know, the social justice leader of our times, the guy who's participating in every psychological operation, and every last one of these stories has been, it couldn't be any more Orwellian. It's the exact opposite of the truth. This guy's the biggest instigator and the biggest divider in race relations of our times. You know, if he were a real man and wanted to bring people together, he'd be like, you know what? I want you guys all to know that dummy on 47th Street in Chicago in the Black Museum that's supposed to be a replica of Mike Brown, I want you to know that's actually not a replica of Mike Brown. That's the same Mike Brown that we used for the news story. And for all of you guys who don't know that, it's a fact. I'm sorry. If you don't know that, you don't know the facts, because if my channel had not been deleted a gazillion times, the video would still be up where I showed the footage, which the internet, that's what makes me sick too. That's the whole 1984 thing. The information of our times is no longer mostly on paper, right? The information of our times is on the web, and now we see how information can just disappear from the web. It can be edited, it can be changed. But the video used to be up of Michael Brown, his body, which was a plastic dummy, being loaded into the back of a police SUV. Bodies don't go in police SUVs, plastic dummies do, and that's why they had a wall of cops, so you couldn't see anything, just standing in a circle in the street, a human circle, around a plastic dummy to create this whole big story. And having them stand in a circle is part of the ritual. Again, spelling, spells, sorcery. There's books in the library about witchcraft. Go open up any one. They're all going to tell you the same thing. The first rule in making the spell is you must make a circle. You must make a circle. That's why you've seen it in the movies where they draw the circle. You've seen the scene of don't step inside the circle. You've seen the satanic scenes with the big circle with the upside down pentagram in it. So you had a human circle of cops standing around a plastic dummy. And here, I'm going to make a point about Michael Brown and George Floyd real quick. It's a point I made a million times, but I always assume there's somebody new here. Carter G. Woodson is the founder of Black History Month. Here's where all of this comes together. Again, if you're new here, you'll realize that I am redundant, but the reason I'm redundant is because people must learn these things, and I'm always hoping there's some new people that come across every video, which used to be a lot more true back in the day. But notice the gematria at Carter G. Woodson. This is the founder of Black History Month. 177 with the alphabetic order, 69 with numerology, 201 with the reverse alphabetic order, 75 with the reverse numerology. Notice the minimal change when I write out the Jesuit order. The Jesuit order, 177, 69, 201. Now, all of these numbers are important, is large and in charge, is because the first Jesuit pope in the history of the Catholic Church, who's Pope Francis, is the first to live at Suite 201 in the Vatican. And for the record, his birth name is Jorge Mario Bergoglio, which is 201. Just like the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola is 201. Just like Adam Weishaupt, who founded the Order of Illuminati, was a Jesuit, which is 201. And again, he died 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment. Just like David Ben-Gurion died 201 days after the establishment of Israel, when he's considered the nation's founder. And State of Israel, its official title is also 201. But notice Michael Brown. Michael Brown is also 201. And remember, Ferguson is just outside of St. Louis, Saint Catholic, but St. Louis University is one of their very important Jesuit schools in this nation. And again, Michael Brown is what popped off Black Lives Matter. The Michael Brown killing is where Black Lives Matter came into being. George Floyd, whose full name is George Perry Floyd, is who really brought Black Lives Matter back and then had its biggest, notoriety out of that event. The ransacking of cities blamed on Black Lives Matter, which was organized chaos. Again, a lot of people are bussed into cities and told to do exactly what they do. Tear apart Portland, but it was obvious, leave Nordstrom's alone. Nordstrom's isn't on the hit list. All those mom and pop stores, they're all free game, but leave Nordstrom's alone. And anyway, George Floyd, not only is his name 201, everything about George Floyd was 201. His baby mama, Roxy Washington's 201. Remember, they said he had a counterfeit 20, right? A counterfeit $20 bill. And just days before that happened to George Floyd, Steve Mnuchin, who's a member of Skull and Bones, which is another 201 society, Steve Mnuchin said that they were delaying the Harriet Tubman $20 bill for like another decade. So that was also part of the joke. But Right after the George Floyd thing, one of the stories that broke out of Minneapolis was a man named Lamar Ferguson had been beaten by the same group of cops. And I mean, Lamar Ferguson, it just reminds of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and Lamar Ferguson's also 201. And then there was a story, I forget the other guy's name right now, but it was another 201 name out of Louisville, down by where the Breonna Taylor thing happened. And remember, Breonna Taylor and Tyree Nichols both have the same June 5th birthday, the same day Black Lives Matter was painted in D.C., which can be written 5/6, and they were both born in 93. And for the record, Black History Month's 93, like how Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, died on the 93rd day of the year, which is another number because Malcolm X is 93, and Martin Luther King Jr. is 93, and so are a bunch of other names that connected to Black history. And notice Order of Illuminati, which is a Jesuit creation, has also got the 93 in it. And they're illuminated by the sun, which is supposedly 93 million miles away. And who are the people of the sun? Of course, people who are referred to as black people, who are more melanated, who are more, apt for living in sunnier places. Take a fair-skinned, redheaded woman out in the sun and see how she does compared to, somebody who's darker. You know what I mean? But anyway. Ben Crump's been here through all of it, right? He's been here through all of these rituals, and they've all been just major rituals. Trayvon Martin gets buried on the anniversary of the Rodney King beating, March 3rd, 3/3. In the case of George Floyd, the rioting starts on 33rd Street. In the Tyree Nichols beating, the camera moves. Just happened to be in a neighborhood that had a camera where nobody lives in the neighborhood. And it just happened to be a beating in front of a Mercedes parked on the street, like how George Floyd was pulled out of a Mercedes. But the camera moves right to the beating scene at 33 minutes after the hour. And again, if you're new here, police, 33. Masonry, 33. Secrecy, 33. Order, 33. Federal, 33. Race war, 33. The whole thing they did with Dylan Stormroof, the Charleston church. And by the way, the Charleston church shooting happened on the anniversary of Rodney King's death. And they said Rodney King died from drowning, like a black stereotype. What they just did down in Arizona, the black swimmer who just died by the numbers for Black History Month. Anyway, the Dylan Stormroof, they said he wanted to start a race war. And then he got 33 federal charges. And then they showed the supposed dead politician in the news that really did look like a wax, not to mention the same politician that was advocating for getting street cameras all over Charleston. That was his thing. What's his name? Clemente Pickett? I forget exactly how you say his last name, but anyway, he was the politician that was supposedly died. But I do remember when I was like, that does not look like a real human. That looks like a wax sculpture. And it probably was. And, but yeah, it's been the same thing all these years, over and over. And, okay, on to the next story. So on the same day that Benjamin Crump is, the greatest civil rights leader of our time, according to the NAACP, the viral story in the news is the white racist Dilbert comic strip creator, and how all the papers are dropping him because of his remarks about how white people need to move as far away as possible from black people. And this is another contrived ritual, and just like we show how day after day the news is contrived, notice, Dilbert equals 70. This was the big news on the same day, Saturday, February 25th, 2023, a date with 70 numerology. So many 70 stories in the news on the 70 date. We talked about this with the killing of the Asian woman. And again, 70 days after the Pope's birthday, where Vatican and Francis is 70. But Dilbert 70, right? So we're hearing about the Dilbert comic creator being a racist. And notice how racist is 70 like Dilbert. 25 if you use numerology, going with the 25th of the month. But 70 date. So appropriate for this story. R.I.P. to the dead politician in Ohio who dropped dead yesterday at only the age of 46. Chris Jordan, whose name's 70. Method Man, his birth name equals 70. He got the second most honors last night at the NAACP Awards. And you know what I thought about with Method Man, I just got to say? It was the 54th NAACP Awards, and Method Man was in The Wire, and the first episode of that show begins on May 4th. And remember, Omar from that show, he died in a big 54 ritual. And he's on HBO, which is a totally 54 network, home box office 54. But, yeah, I just thought it's too bad that Omar's not here to watch his fellow actor have this great night of success. And I think a lot of us who watched the show The Wire, we really did like that Omar character. It was arguably the best character in the show. There was just something about the way he portrayed his character. And he was a good actor in other films as well. But something that I specifically remember that I listened to him in an interview, and sometimes I wonder if this is the reason he died. And I'll say something about Method Man, too, because I remember when Method Man was on MTV next to Old Dirty Bastard, who's gone and was killed by the numbers. But the actor who played Omar, he said that, the most difficult thing for him was that in his time as an actor, he had a best friend who died unexpectedly. And I might have to go back and look more carefully into the story. We know what tends to happen to friends and family around these actors who just die unexpectedly, prematurely. But he was just so broken up over it, he wanted to go to the funeral. And then the film that he was working for, they said, well, if you go to that funeral, you're going to lose the role. You're done. So he said that, ultimately he chose not to go to the funeral because he didn't want to lose the gig he had, which was good. And, he felt kind of guilty about that. And he said that in a public interview. I can't remember if it was on a nightly news story or what it was, but I remember, it's probably around like 2006, 2007 that I saw him talking about this on TV, and I thought, man, that's messed up. I mean, like, really? They couldn't let him go to the funeral of his best friend? But maybe just even talking about that publicly, maybe that's why, he's getting axed by the numbers all these years later. Shouldn't be telling stories like that. You're making our industry look bad. And it's just like Method Man. I mean, people can go look at the interview on MTV years ago where Old Dirty Bastard, if you don't know who these guys are, they're members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and Method Man's mostly an actor now. It's funny, how many of the people from that group have become actors? The RZA? Anyway, but Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard are being interviewed, and Old Dirty Bastard's bringing up all these things that are wrong in the world, like conspiracy stuff, and Method Man's going there, he's like, I don't agree with that. I didn't say none of that. I didn't say that. He's just acting like, no, hey, don't be saying this stuff next to me. Next thing you know, what do you know? Old Dirty Bastard's dead. Hey, Method Man, now he's at the NAACP winning awards. And he's been in all kinds of movies and shows since then. So, and also, I mean, like Method Man, his whole big thing was Tikal. He's promoting like drug use, right? If you don't know what Tikal is, you can look into that. Tikal. Just the kind of stuff they want, right? Low vibration crap. So, anyhow, here coming back to this on the 70 date numerology, we got Dilbert the racist telling people to move as far away from black people as they can because black people are starting to hate white Americans. So, in a way, he's putting out nonsense and bullshit. And honestly, he's probably told to say this. And for everyone to be like, well, why is he told to say that? I mean, why he's going to lose his comic? He's probably losing so much money. Yeah, but how rich is this guy already? And how did he get to be? How many good comics are there in the world that don't get to be in every published paper? I think this is the game. He's an older man. He look at him. He's already mega rich and he's older. You don't think he's at retirement age? Maybe he's ready to take a break from making comics each day. There's a lot of funny comics in the world, and how do you get to be the chosen one? How do you? There's a lot of great singers and guitar players and musicians in the world. How do you get to be the one, that's the chosen one? We know it's not the most talented. We definitely know it's not the most talented. I mean, look at the musical acts that are being promoted to the top. It's a joke. But anyway, this guy is now saying all this crazy stuff, giving us exactly what they want. And for people who are new here, understand, I've been talking about this pattern with 70 and racism for a long time. White equals 70, right? The word white is also 70. And all of these white supremacist shootings, just go through them over the years. White supremacists, 70 shots fired, 70 shots fired, 70 shots fired. Recently in Buffalo, that's exactly how many shots they said, Peyton Gendron shot 70 shots at the Buffalo Tops. 70. Over and over and over again. And, look at these headlines. Slate, white extremist murders killed at least 70. Oh, I'm sure, at least 70. So, there's so many examples of this that we've gone over the years. Here's another example. And for the record, on the 25th, this news is everywhere, right? The racist guy is Scott Adams. Notice how Scott Adams is 25. Notice how racist is 25, right? Also 70, going with the date numerology. News by the numbers. programming by the numbers, division by the numbers, day after day after day. And, I mean, if I remember right, I think Peyton Gendron, the name of that shooter who shot 70 shots, was also 70. Oh, you know what it was? They said Peyton S. Gendron in several stories. They put an S in there. They put his middle initial. That's what it was. Peyton S. Gendron. You see how it's 70 and 65 like white? Peyton S. Gendron. Several of the headlines had it. So, anyway, Peyton S. Gendron with the 70 shots fired. But that's what it is. And here, just to read this. Multiple newspapers have pulled the popular office comedy comic strip Dilbert after its creator Scott Adams made racist comments in his podcast and then doubled down on them. This is what he said, if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll. So realize he's responding to something in the media, right? He's saying, oh, this poll in the media is saying nearly half of the black population is not okay with white people. So he's responding to something in the media, right? According to this poll, not to me, that's a hate group, Adams said during his Coffee with Scott Adams vlog, referring to a Rasmussen poll published this week. That's a hate group, and I don't want anything to do with them. So, media puts out this information, and what does media, what is the point of the media putting out even information like that? What's the point? Is it like to gauge like, oh, look what we've done to the populace. We've got racial animosity at an all-time high since 1961, or, what is this? Is it bragging rights for what they've done? Is it even true? I'm sure if we actually looked at the poll, we'd laugh at the number. Probably says like 59% of, I was just reading something I posted on Twitter the other week about, CNN had this story about how taxes are racist. And then I was like, wait a minute, how can taxes be racist? And then I was reading through it to see where the stat, and then finally it hits you with the stat that the way the tax bracket's set up, it disproportionately impacts 59% of black. I was like, come on, man. 59% of black Americans in Black History Month, the month that ends on the 59th day of the year. And again, if you guys don't know, Slave 59, Negro 59, Blues 59, Rasta 59, Strange Fruit 59. You notice how we've kind of become slaves in the time of recent healthcare and not really even having control over our bodies. And they say that we're still in the Obamacare legacy. Don't you see the sick joke? And then Obama's book, A Promised Land, which is another 59. So, but yeah, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I post a lot of stuff on Twitter, but it was last weekend. It was something in the news. I know the post is there. Twitter's taking forever to load. Here, bear with me. Let's see how much I posted last week. I just want you to see this with your own eyes about how taxes are racist and 59%. This is the media programming by the numbers, nonstop BS, and, just this too. Jennifer McClain will become Virginia's first black congresswoman. I was like, wait a minute. Again, just refer, the way our whole culture's set up. You can be 1% black and you're referred to as a black person. It doesn't even make sense, right? But hold on. Come on. Racial shaming of Karl Malone right after the Utah has the All-Star game. You can't see how this stuff is just so ritualistic. It's so obvious. It's so transparent. That said, Karl Malone did also seem like an asshole. But still, it's just so obvious what they're doing. Oh, here we go. Okay. Black couples pay a higher tax penalty for marriage than white couples. Here's why. So you read the story and it's total bullshit, right? And then finally, I was just looking for how they get to it. And then, here it is. When researchers specifically focused on households with adjusted gross income between $50,000 and $100,000 under the tax law in effect for 2018, they found 59% of black couples faced a marriage penalty versus 51% of white couples. Okay, this is like some bullshit financial analysis. There is nothing in the tax code that punishes you based on race. And again, for anyone who's getting triggered by this stuff, and people will get triggered by it. People who just read headlines. Oh my God, They don't even look into it. Oh my God, we're getting punished because of our race. This is just some bullshit bait that's put out there. And then here comes just some falsified stat by the numbers. And again, this is what they're feeding us all day. Bullshit stats by the numbers, day after day. Okay. Again, this is a Kabbalistic way of controlling the masses. Remember, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, all these things are part of the ancient mystery religions. And again, Hermeticism teaches there's either only one of two things are happening. Either you're doing the influencing or you're being influenced. You're doing the influencing or you're being influenced. I want you to think about that in regards to the American public. How many of the people in the American public and the 300 and some million people that live in this nation are the ones doing the influencing versus the amount of people that are being influenced by the media and then acting accordingly? If I had to guess what the percentage is, 95% are the ones being influenced by the Kabbalists who understand the way to manipulate the public. Maybe 5% of the public are independent influencers trying to get, it might even be just 1%, but then that 1% is having an impact and they're turning like the 4% who's listening into that they're doing their own influencing rather than being influenced by this. And another way, I mean, you could say 100% of us are under some level of influence. But some of us may be less influenced than others in doing the influencing in other ways. But this is what it is. And that's why the programming is nonstop. And the question becomes, do they need to do it this way? Is it necessary to do it this way? Because this is what they do. I mean, I'm not just me. There's other people in the community contributing now. But, I mean, for a decade, I've been proving that this is what they're doing every single day by documenting it every single day, by predicting the headlines before they happened. If you guys weren't here in the beginning, the first of my videos that stayed up were focusing on the Michael Brown thing because I saw how hard they were working from the time of Trayvon Martin up to that to do things ritualistically to get people so focused on racism. And it just, I guess as somebody who grew up in a culturally diverse neighborhood, again, I was the only white kid on the block in the neighborhood I grew up in, but we all got along. We were all friends. There wasn't a problem. So I guess I liked hearing this story that we were growing up in this better time where everyone got along, where it wasn't maybe that way in the past. And now I look back and I'm like, maybe it's been that way. Maybe people have just been getting along and we've all been influenced by this bullshit history. I mean, we see what history becomes right now, and we see it's all bullshit. So, I don't know. I wasn't alive when MLK and Malcolm X were around, and I learned about that history, but isn't it even true? You know? In a way, I want to say that, yeah, I do think I also do know that a level of racism exists, but I think a lot of people's racism is like stuff that goes on in their own house and thoughts they have, but they don't really reflect in the public. It's just like, again, my mom's family is from North Dakota, right? Predominantly white state, low population, mostly Norwegians and Germans who live in North Dakota. And when Obama became the president, when I was around my family when he was president, the way a lot of them referred to him it was as the N, and you know what the N is, but I just thought, God. But then they don't go out in public and act like that, right? That's how they talk in their own house. So, it's not good, but it's not really, it's like, okay, you want to do that in your house, I guess, whatever. But like that's the extent of racism that I've really seen with my own eyes. And then, again, they do give us these cultural tensions. The only place I've ever had a conflict with black people in life, in the flesh, is on basketball courts. And I had an older black man, say one time to me, Zach, he said, Zach, you have to understand, when you're out here on the court, a black man doesn't want to get shown up by a white guy because, again, this is our place on the court. This is what we're known for. If a white guy comes on here, it feels like we don't have anything. And it's not to say that I showed up every black basketball player, but, again, we grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. My sister's a lot older than me. I grew up he wasn't my actual blood brother, but he was like my older brother because my sister was with him for so long. I learned a lot from him, and he raised me up playing sports, and he was a good influence. My dad's a good athlete. I wasn't a bad athlete, so I did have some altercations on basketball courts, and I just realized there's some kind of tension there. But, I mean, so there are little things, but these are little things. These are little things. Outside of that, like, I never had a problem with race relations with anybody. And I think that's true for almost all of us. Most of the stuff we're hearing about has always been in history books and in the media. And, again, I know there are other stories. Like when I was in Buffalo, the gentleman out there explained to me that all the corner stores have been bought up by people who are from the Middle East, and then the Middle Easterners are kind of rude to the black people who live in the neighborhood. And, I mean, there is stuff, but it's just like, again, they're just trying to pour fuel on a fire. And that's the other thing, too. It's like, why are there, like, I don't mean to sound wrong, but in the time that they've been, like, teaching us to be scared of Islamic people in the post 9/11 era, where they're teaching us that Islamic people are terrorists, in that same period of time, the federal government's made a point to funnel in more people from the Middle East than at any other point in American history. So, again, you have to see the way we're being manipulated. And I guess the other thing that's sad is it's like, why can it be that in a black community where it's been predominantly black for decades upon decades, do these people not own their own stores? And then, Middle Easterners can come in and buy up every corner store in the neighborhood and treat them like this. Again, that's something about it. It's not. It's like you look at a lot of business owners in this nation. They're people that came over from other countries. You look at all the highest paying jobs in this country. There are people that came over from other countries and can go to all the big tech sectors where all the best paying jobs in America are right now. In the age of technology, very few people that have these jobs are Americans. So, again, it's like the actual American people are being held back from achieving what they should be able to achieve. People are coming over from other countries and taking like the best things that America has to offer. And I guess really if you sit back and think about it, a lot of it is because America's just so caught up in bullshit their whole lives. They're not mastering mathematics and science and the things, and again, these things aren't emphasized in our culture. I remember when I was in school growing up, our teachers would tell us how lucky we were that we only had to go to school for this amount of days a year and this many hours a day, because had we grown up in China, we'd be going to school for almost the whole year, and the days are a lot longer, and you'd have to be doing way more math at an earlier age. And in a way, I was like, man, I'm glad I'm not having to go through that. I'm glad I can go home and play outside with my friends and do whatever. But now we see what it is, right? It's like, well, wait a minute. Now all those Chinese guys have all the jobs that pay well. The Chinese guys now. So, again, while we're so distracted and entertained and fighting amongst ourselves and getting caught up in the latest drama, we're also getting behind in what the rest of the world's doing. Not caught up in the drama and just focused on achieving and advancing themselves and having knowledge and skills. I mean, this is what it is. Because stories like this is what, instead of, maybe a kid comes home from school after his day at slave school, and instead of the parents talking about, like, I remember when I moved. I moved to a lower middle class neighborhood, and a lot of Asian kids lived in that neighborhood. And I just saw how their life was. It was after school, they went home and now they're studying more mathematics. I was like, man, I'm glad my parents don't make me do that. Homework's enough. But, like one of those kids, Michael, he grew up to be a great engineer. And I'm just saying, that's the conversation going around their family table. Conversation going on around America's table is, like, man, can you believe that Benjamin Crump? Can you believe what that Dilbert writer did? God, I wish Donald Trump would come back and save us. I mean, that's the difference. So, and people coming to my channel are like, well, Zach, all you focus on, again, people who come and leave these kind of comments that all I'm doing is focused on the media and the negativity, again, you don't have any discernment or understanding. I'm trying to get people to break out of this media matrix that's controlling everyone's mind in this nation, which I've seen for a long time, since even way before 9/11 happened. I used to get driven nuts by how much people my age when I was a kid wanted to watch TV. Football games on. Let's go watch the football game. I'd be like, let's go outside and play football. Let's go outside and play football. I don't want to watch the game. I want to play myself. I want to see if I can improve my throwing distance today. I want to see if I can score 5 touchdowns on you guys today, not watch other guys play football. So, anyway, America, a nation of TV watchers, and yeah, it's just not good. So again, just with even just little silly things being by the numbers. NAACP Image Awards. Who took top honors on 225? Angela Bassett did, 225. Just running the alphabetic order in reverse. Angela Bassett, 225 on 225. Award ceremony after award ceremony. Doesn't matter if it's Country Music Awards, Oscars, Grammys, whatever, Golden Globes. We see the same stuff week after week, year after year. How can it be? It goes to show, Angela Bassett isn't like you and I. Angela Bassett, she's got the name. She's got the birthday for the planned rituals. And she won it for Wakanda Forever, right? And remember again, just the advantage of this knowledge. I put it out for free, Thursday Night Football. I showed you, you go to this video right here. This video was published before Thursday Night Football. The Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football on the eve of Wakanda Forever Black Panther. Remember, the Carolina Panthers, their entire franchise is synced up with the history of the Black Panther Party, which is how we called Super Bowl 50. Dead on. Who'd be the MVP? Hey, remember how I was talking about 58 in the beginning? Freemasonry 58, Secret Society 58, the founder of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton 58, right? In October, we said, look at this. Von Miller, number 58, will be the MVP of the Super Bowl, and he will beat Cam Newton, who will be the 58th quarterback to start in the Super Bowl. Cam Newton, like Huey P. Newton, in the Super Bowl in the Bay Area where the Black Panther Party was founded in the same year of the first Super Bowl season. But we saw that in October, and that's very lucrative information because Von Miller, who was picked one pick in the NFL draft after Cam Newton who was born. You see how Huey P. Newton also equals 131? Cam Newton was born on the 131st day of the year, in the year Huey P. Newton died, and Huey P. Newton died on the day, leaving 131 days left in the year in that same year. Rigged sports, rigged rituals, people born for the stage, people used on the stage, people sacrificed on the stage. And again, where did it all start? It started in Catholic churches in the Bay Area. But again, we've been talking about the Black Panther Party and rituals with the Panthers for all these years. So here's the point I wanted to make. In this video, I pointed out how the Panthers' next win at home all-time in their franchise would be 115. 115, Panthers equals 115. And that movie was releasing exactly 115 weeks after the death of Chadwick Boseman. So you got the Panthers playing on primetime on the eve of the new Black Panther movie, and the Panthers can just coincidentally get the 115th home win in their franchise history. Wakanda Forever, about creating this new home for their people. Home win, right? Masonics also 115, and so is Killing. Again, it was 115 weeks from the death of Chadwick Boseman, who died on the makeshift Jackie Robinson Day, and they did change his age of death from 42 to 43, because he really died at 42, like Jackie's 42. You see how Jackie's 42? You see how slavery's 42? You see how the N-word's 42? You see how Tuskegee's 42? Notice how Tuskegee's also 30 and 42. Look at slavery again, right? 30 and 42. Look at the N-word again, 30 and 42. Look at the name Martin, 30 and 42. Look at the name Malcolm X, 30 and 42. Now look at the character Angela Bassett played, winning the award for Wakanda Forever, Ramonda, right? Ramonda, 30 and 42, right? What are the odds of that? Remember how we talked about 201 in the Jesuits and Black history? Look into the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and look at how many people were in the control group. You'll see it was 201. It'll remind you that before the COVID pandemic, the simulation for it was put on by Jesuits, and it was called Event 201. And it'll remind you in the build-up to the jab coming out to save us all from the pandemic, what did the media keep saying over and over for what population group needed it the most? Over and over, they said the same thing. And by the way, remember a black woman was the first to get it, Sandra Lindsay, on the anniversary of Sandy Hook. But notice the jab's also 42, like how Elvis, who made black music, they said, died at age 42, and he got the jab on live TV for polio exactly 42 weeks after his birthday, on Jonas Salk's 42nd birthday and Bill Gates' first birthday, who operates out of the 42nd state, Washington. who is always over in Africa testing out his new medical experiments on black children. By the way, William Henry Gates, his full name, is another 201, and his ex, who had the same birthday as the Jesuit order, comes from a family of Jesuit priests who was the main co-sponsor of Event 201. But yeah, I mean, they even have to code it in the character name, right? And this is nothing new. It's just like Martin lives in apartment 42 in the sitcom Martin in Detroit on the 42nd parallel, February. I mean, here we are in February, right? Black History Month, which is the month that equals 42. But yeah, and again, Method Man also took big honors, and in his birth name's Clifford Smith, and again, this was on the date with 70 numerology. Clifford Smith, 70. And then, again, while all this stuff's going on, right, it's the National Day of Hate, this thing that's being promoted, and they said it's neo-Nazis and people like Handsome Truth and the GDL and all this, but again, I just want you to see the familiar patterns. National Day of Hate, right? 72, and they're mostly saying it's neo-Nazis. Let's not forget that Hitler equals 72, and he was backed by the Catholic Church and wore the red and black like the Jesuits. Order also 70, or Jesuit Order 72. Let's not forget President Biden 72, President Trump 72. With regards to Biden, let's not forget that when it was 1972, he became senator-elect and his wife and daughter died in a car crash right after on 201 Road. And then when he was 72 years old, his son Beau Biden died 201 days before the Pope's birthday. And let's not forget that the first Jesuit Pope became the first Jesuit Pope on March 13, 2013, the 72nd day of the year. Let's not forget there's 72 Goetias in the 72 demons in the Goetia, 72 names of God in Kabbalah. The rule of 72, there's 72s all over the place. 72 bricks on the pyramid in the dollar bill. Again, the Jesuits are a sun cult. The sun moves 1 degree every 72 years on the astrological wheel. There's a reason for all of this. President Biden 144, like Jesuit order, a number connected to time, square root 12, 12 hours in the morning, in the evening, 12 months in the year. Wakanda forever, 144, And again, Jesuit order, right? 144.54. Wakanda Forever, the actress, gets top honors at the 54th NAACP Awards. And by the way, the first Super Bowl with 2 black quarterbacks fell on Abe Lincoln's birthday, right? Abe Lincoln, 57, Super Bowl 57, but it was also the NAACP's birthday. Happened to be their 114th birthday as history's made. But yeah, just all this stuff on the same day, right? Spreading hate through the Dilbert cartoon, where he's saying, again, the Dilbert guy says, and I would say based on the current way things are going, the best advice I can give to white people is just to get the hell away from black people. Again. And notice, I mean, it's all about what information you're listening to, right? Turn on Fox News. Fox News is a racist news network, and anybody who can't see that must be racist, because what is Fox News always doing? Fox News loves to highlight black men caught on camera doing things illegal. Fox News has to have several of those stories every day in their mix, And then Fox News is always broadcasting the narrative that white people are being phased out of society. White people are being phased out of society. Is there an element of truth to that? Yeah, there is. There is. And you know what? Don't dwell on things that are going on. Recognize it and then figure out a way to get around it. How do I know that white people are being phased out? Because I've been living in Seattle since, I don't live there anymore, but I started living in Seattle in 2006, and there was a time where I was trying to find certain places to work, and I was literally being told that we're actually looking for candidates other than white males. It's like, oh, wow. And I ended up working at a place where, and not to say there's anything wrong with black women, but I ended up working at a place where a black woman was in charge, and she never showed up for work. She literally got caught stealing from the company, and despite all that, she remained in charge because they wanted a black woman to be the head of the company. It's like, wow, this is really interesting. So you can not show up for work, you can steal from the company, you can get caught, And the only people who get in trouble are the people who catch that you were stealing from the company. That's who actually got in trouble. So, and again, that's not understand, it's not a slight on black women. It's just a real story. And I mean, but who's doing all this? Who's making these decisions? These are the people that want us fighting amongst ourselves while they continue to rule over us and gain greater and greater market share and, pull the world more and more into chaos. Because like we started in the beginning, these people make a lot of money out of chaos. Yeah, go ahead and have a race war downtown and tear it all apart. We're going to make more money off it. You're going to lose your mom and pop store. We have so much power, we can make sure where the chaos goes. We're not worried. We're not going to lose. We're just going to gain more and more market share. We're going to gain more and more wealth. You guys keep fighting amongst yourselves. So, and it's all about this narrative that we learned before we were alive, right? That's why it's part of our slave school training to learn about the history of slavery and the injustice that's happened to this race. And now you got, Jesuit governors like Gavin Newsom, saying like, we're thinking about giving out reparations. We're going to give out reparations for things that happened, that you learned about from 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You already have like a major financial crisis and you're having to make all these cuts in all kinds of programs. What is paying out reparations going to do for that? Well, it's going to make it so that you're in a greater financial hole. And now everyone's tax money is going to go towards more and more debt. And there's going to be even more animosity in society because, yeah, the white guy who might have benefited from the system for all these years, now he's pissed off because now he can't get a job because he's white. And now he's like screwed and, inflation's going crazy. And he knows his tax money's now going to even more debt. And he's just like, okay, I understand slavery was a bad thing, but God, I didn't make that choice for slavery. I learned about that in the same history book that everybody else did. But again, you guys, they're doing all of this to us because they just know it's going to keep us fighting with ourselves. They know that, again, the ruling class knows that emotions like greed and envy are like ruling over American consciousness. They know that people are going to continue to look at each other and fight with each other and compete with each other and, just dig the hole that we are digging as a society right now that's really being dug for us. We're being baited into digging our own hole further and further. And it's bad. And in the time that they're adding all this bait and stuff, they're also like getting people to just be more sensitive, more emotional, more caught up in all the wrong things. I mean, look at how it's weird. I mean, just look at what's going on in the time of this. Like in the time of all this, like be hypersensitive cancel culture. You see how people who've been riding with me for all these years have all of a sudden flipped against me because they're like, you know what, Zach, I think you crossed the line this time with that rant. It's like, dude, I've been doing the same rant for, the last 5 years. All of a sudden, you're getting real sensitive about it in the last year where this is the major cultural programming. Maybe you have been following what I've been saying all along, but you should realize in yourself right now is maybe you're not as separate from this media programming as you think you are because it seems that you're under the same spell that they want people to be under. You're now worried about my rants about why I'm angry and mad at people. I mean, I think everyone can understand with a brain who really is riding with me why I rant the way I do sometimes. I am sick of humanity's ignorance and them just marching along to the mind control programming day after day. I'm calling out the Chigozi truths of the world. Chigozi truth becomes so sensitive. And it's not just him, but it's just like he's just become so sensitive and emotional. And he's given plenty of rants just like me too, but now he wants to cry about the things that I've ranted about. And really what happened there? Right, again, we all have all this stuff going on, right? We have all these emotions, things happening in our life. A few dominoes spill over right here. Now more dominoes are spilling over. Again, The only time Chigozi ever came out to any kind of gathering we had was to meet another woman so that he could have sexual relations with her. He had that there, and then they broke up, and since then, I've been his number one enemy. And I guarantee if you could get inside his brain, you'd find out that he holds that resentment against me because he liked this woman, and now that broke apart, so somehow that's my fault because I brought this thing that's now a pain in his... I guarantee you it's something like that. This kind of stuff is just weakness. I know it's human, but it's like you got to be rational, you got to be logical, you got to be consistent. And again, nobody's perfect, but you should strive to be better. And yeah, I realize things I've ranted on and the things I've said definitely could have been put in a better way. But at the same time, people should see where I'm coming from. All of us have a reason to be outraged. I've always said, like if there's a motivating piece of entertainment in my world, it's the movie Network. I think that's the most important movie that was ever made, Network. And the quote from that film is, first you got to get mad. First you got to get mad. And he says that because you got to start speaking about how unjust this system is. And again, just like I was saying in the beginning with Warren Buffett, there's a scene in that movie. If you guys don't know what Network's about, it's about a news anchor, like a CBS news anchor who goes on the news every night. And instead of going on the news and reading the teleprompter and saying what he's supposed to say, instead he comes on and he gives a rant about how the world is bullshit. And if you haven't caught on yet, every night the news is bullshit. And he's telling them bullshit. And his whole life's bullshit. And for all of you who need some God to believe in, to make it, you think it's going to be okay, that's more bullshit. And I'm not saying that a creator is bullshit. I don't think, but again, it's a funny scene, and he's just saying the whole world's bullshit, and everyone's caught up in bullshit, and we got to break away from this bullshit because ultimately, at the end of the day, this bullshit's not good for us. So, if you've seen the film, at first they cut him off the news, but then they realized they had the biggest rating ever during that rant. So then they're like, you know what? We're going to start a new show where he just goes on and rants every night on the news, and eventually, what he's doing starts to break the corporate control system. So he gets set down in the boardroom by, what's the actor's name? Ned Beatty. And Ned Beatty explains to him, he's like, listen, you are messing with, however he phrases it, the primordial forces of nature. And then he explains how what matters in this world is gold, oil, corporations, all this stuff, the stuff that's ruling over us. And he's like, well, your rants are cutting into our profits, and this will not go on, or you will not go on. Capiche? But yeah, again, the movie Network is awesome because it's also about, the news network gets a new, she's in charge of the news division. And this is it's a fictional movie, but it's full of truth. And it was at the same time in real life where, back in the day, nightly news was not for profit. And it was strictly not for profit because they did not want the people who could give it profit to be motivating what's on the news. And we see how this is now. Anderson Cooper goes on a rant. You're not a real man if you have not been vaccinated yet. You are a child. And then literally when he's done on his rant, being told you're not a real man by Anderson Cooper, literally at the end of the rant, it goes to commercial break. This segment sponsored by Pfizer. It's just like, okay. Oh my God. Did anybody just watch that? I mean, is there anyone who still has a brain left? You're not a man if you don't go out and get vaccinated. This segment brought to you by Pfizer. I mean, seriously? But that's where we are. That's where we are. The Synagogue of Satan tribute at the Grammys, brought to you by Pfizer. Like, literally. And, again, people in the past understood that, and realized, I mean, society's on the decline, right? And part of it's because the information is so corrupted and so bad. There was a time, even though this nation's always been corrupt and bad, there was a time it was less corrupt. There was a time where the nightly news was not for profit, and it was actually about giving people information. The Vietnam War. What was different about the time of the Vietnam War? The nightly news used to show the dead bodies of the soldiers so that people could go on and say, see, this is what war looks like. Look at all these young dead people right here. What are we fighting this war for? Has anyone seen any dead soldier bodies on the news in any war in your lifetime? Well, you lived in the time of Vietnam, sure, but if you're my age, I'm almost 40, born in 83. Has anyone my age seen any dead? I remember what CNN did at the beginning of the year with Ukraine. Looked like they were on a movie set from Wag the Dog, and this guy's walking down the street, and there's this it didn't make any sense because the tank looked totally fried, like it had been lit on fire, but the street was all perfectly fine around it. And I was like, okay, if the tank got all burned up right there, I'd imagine the concrete would be damaged. But then he's walking along the tank, and he's like, oh my God, there's a dead body right there. And then they literally go up pretty close to it, and you can see it's just a plastic dummy. I'm like, oh my. Okay. Is this a scene to test how dumb everyone is? The burnt up tank doesn't make sense because everything on the road is perfect around it. It's pristine. And now he's like literally showing you a plastic, and it's like when remember the airport shooting in LA years ago where they like literally wheeled out the plastic dummy. It's just like, oh my God, man. Like they know that the population is this, or people are so tuned out that they can just get away with this. But again, it's all it is every day, guys. It's back to your regularly scheduled programming, and it seems like as time goes on, they have to make it dumber and dumber to make sure. Is that not one of the hit movies of our generation, Dumber and Dumber, starring Jim Carrey, who now goes on, comedy night shows every now and then and makes fun of like, oh, people think there's an Illuminati. It's like, well, it was a historical thing founded by a Jesuit. They seem to still be running the show by the same 201 code they were doing back then. But yeah, I just, network. If you've never seen it, I didn't even finish. The woman who takes over, who becomes head of the network, literally dialogue in the movie is she's like, I want to start creating the news stories. I want terrorism. She wants to create news stories to sell as news to make it more engaging and exciting. I mean, it's just like, you go back and look at this, you're like, oh my God, man. These people have been telling us all in advance in Hollywood for so long. That movie came out before I was even alive. Anyhow. By the way, I did go through and just slimmed all the wrenches, and don't feel disheartened if you lost a wrench. But I just wanted to see if we could minimize the amount of people who are getting banned who shouldn't be banned, and a lot of people were complaining about how many people had wrenches, so I allowed a select few to maintain their wrench. And because there are people who've done a great job as moderators, or people who've come out and pounded payment. And some people said they didn't want a wrench, so I just took away their wrench, even though I'd probably have given them one. But okay, I see we generated a whopping $8. Let me say thank you to those people. I do appreciate it. Vedger, with another country's currency, I do appreciate it, said, when will they give reparation money to Irish in USA whose white Protestant ancestors were sold like slaves by Catholic Britain to Masonic America? Again, and exactly, I mean, that's the reason they do this stuff, right? Because other people will say, well, listen, we should have a right to reparations too. Now, I feel like, why are they getting... That's why they do it, right? So people can continue fight and say, well, that's not fair. I deserve this. And Truth Vibration Podcast, who should not be doing super chats, chipped in $2. He said, Crump cheats on his boyfriend with Cheney. Hashtag Reuters. Okay, I don't really understand. Is Dick Cheney in the headlines? But yeah, those were the super chats. Well, let me just see if Dick Cheney's in the news. Let's try Dick Cheney. Okay. Sorry, I don't understand the super chat, but doesn't look like there's any recent headlines about Dick Cheney. Ralph Nader still writing 2 days ago. You guys, if you've never read Ralph Nader's book, I think it's called The Seven Traditions. Don't quote me on what number it is, but it's a good book. He teaches the way he was raised and just healthy life practices for a proper life. 88 years old. Ralph Nader's still going. So I have been scolded by Ralph Nader in real life. He was not happy with the question I asked him in person. And I think it came from a place of, don't ask me to do any more than I've already done. I asked Ralph Nader why he only shows up at election time. And you know what? I bet part of what I was wrong about is that's probably just when he gets media coverage. He was just so mad at my question. He did not like it at all. I figured exactly how he responded to me, but he wasn't happy. So, yeah. Anyway. All right. What did I do here? there it is. Okay. I appreciate that, Royal Gush. He said, much love, Zach. Been looking at your work since Spiritual Soul when Kobe died on that ritual. I'm behind you 100%. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that Spiritual Soul has given the numerous recommendations that he has for the work. And it's too bad what happened to his brother, which was very... It was suspicious what happened to his brother, but I don't think it was Spiritual Soul's fault. I mean... I don't know if somewhere along the way, somebody crossed his path and said, hey, we'll take you to the stage that you're on right now. I mean, I don't know that, but it is sad what happened to his brother. Sometimes I wonder if had he not sharing the work, because he did put this work onto a lot of people by sharing it on his platform. Sometimes I wonder if his brother would still be here. Yeah, and then the drama people are talking about. I mean, ultimately, you guys, the bottom line about that drama is, and it's just like when people are doing things for the wrong reasons, right? Like, to me, doing this work has always been about getting knowledge out to change the world for the better, to help people break their mind from the programming and the propaganda that's controlling so many people, it's leading them to the disaster land. And that's what it's been about. For the person who's been a good, helpful part of the community who's recently changed to becoming more of a distraction and drama creator, that it's obvious to me what it's about right now. Because, I mean, they kind of even just shared it openly in their stream yesterday, but I had a private conversation with them, and, I can't figure out the whole thing. The whole thing is so weird, but... she wants to be together with me and thinks I should leave Sweet Lady for her, and that if we got together, the work would go much further, and the world would be a better place. And this isn't the first time this happened. I've had a few different women in the time I've done this who think that I should be with them because, we'd be a good fit, and we're on the same page, and we care about this work, and Zach, you should be with a woman who cares about the work as much as you do. Like I've always said, Sweet Lady is good for me. I do hope that someday she'll get more into the work and help me, and I think that eventually will be a chapter. Things happen when they're supposed to, but again, if it wasn't for May, who's Sweet Lady, I prefer to call her Sweet Lady just because the weirdos out there, they might try to start figuring out who she is if I call her May too many times. But, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have found the work. I don't think we'd be where we are right now. And again, ultimately, she has been supportive. So again, she's put up with a lot. A lot of people, a lot of women would have, they would have wanted me to shut it down based on all the things she's seen happen in the time I've been doing this. And again, I've known her for longer than I've known Gematria, and she's always been good in my life. I feel like she keeps me balanced. She keeps me motivated. She has qualities that I don't have. So, yeah, the only thing I could really ask for more is I do wish she'd come out and pound pavement with me and be a little bit more involved with the work, but she's behind me, supporting me. So, yeah, and again, it's just like, it sounds like ultimately, the woman who's creating drama right now, she had this idea that her and I would end up together, and that might have been her real motivation all this time, and that's why she's creating beefs with other women in the community that she feels like I'm more supportive of than her. I mean, this, it's not a knock on women, but this kind of stuff happens more with women than it does with men. It's just like there can be a cattiness with women, right? Like women seem to be the ultimate competitors when it comes to woman versus woman. The fights I saw, for example, the worst fight scene I ever saw was October 10th, 2010. I'll never forget the date. 10-10-10. It was a 49ers-Eagles game in San Francisco. Just so many fights in that stadium, just in my own section. But just even the worst thing I saw was between two women. I was just like, oh my God, even women killing each other over this game. And It was an ironic game to be at because it was the game where Alex Smith, who was always mild-mannered, blew up at Mike Singletary. There was like chaos on the field between the coach and the players, chaos in the stands. But yeah, there's one fight right that happened just like rose in front of me between women, and the cops came in and dived and tackled them both. It was like the biggest tackle in the game happened in the stands in the section I was in. But yeah, I mean, women can get really competitive and catty, and it's just like. Yeah, again, you got to be about things for the right reason. And I'm going to call out Chigozie, too. It's like, ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't know what Chigozie's real motivation ever was in this community. Was it to have community? I mean, it seemed like he cared about the work, but then the only thing that ever brought him out was to have relations with another woman. And then when that fell apart, then he kind of just, like, disappeared for the community for the most part. Started making videos, like, prank calling, phone scammers. It's like, And now he wants to sit on the sidelines, dogging me day after day. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna keep fighting the good fight. Again, and that's also part of I guess that's kind of a good thing about having a person who's in a relationship and not caught. I mean, that is a big part of our lives, right? When you don't have a relationship, when you're not happy in your, whatever you want to call it, your social needs, if that's a missing part of your life, that might actually, because I think that is truly what we are as humans, right? We're social creatures. When we're children, our life's like really all about our friends. When you pass puberty, you get interest in, I was going to say the other sex, but at this day and age, with what they've done, it's like you might be more likely into men, sadly, if you are a guy. Seems like that's becoming more and more common. And again, just like I told you guys, that one troll of mine that I have that trolls 24/7, 365, that slanders all the time, I've suspected that, I finally got to hear his voice. I've suspected for a long time that, whoever that is, that guy might be homosexual. He might have some kind of feelings for me. Might be some kind of like weird. After listening to his voice yesterday, I'd say the percentile that guy is a homosexual is about 99.9, because I've never heard a straight guy that talks like that. And again, I mean, you get this kind of knowledge and foreknowledge from having life experience, like relationships and crushes and wanting to be with other people. Like all of this stuff can create drama and turmoil. And in the time I've been here, I've never been side-reeled by any woman or had any motivation. I've always been straight about it. I'm like, I'm happy in my relationship. I'm here to do this work. I'm not here for your, I thought you wanted to do the work. Now you're sending me nudie photos. It's never been about any of that. It's always been about doing this work, getting people on board, and, yeah, I see Open Up's comment. I mean, I've said, I guarantee you this guy's some emasculated, and I mean, anyone who heard the conversation that we had yesterday, he's hiding his face, but you could just hear the guy's a total loser. I mean, guy's a total loser. I'm not saying that because of his sexuality, but I mean, just total disingenuous loser, and 99% likely that, he goes for other dudes. So, does it surprise me? Because no real man would do that. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that like gay men aren't real men, but it's more likely, again, some gay guys in this world would surprise you. When I used to here, I'll tell you guys something funny. Okay, when I umpired softball as one of my outside hobby jobs, one year I got sent to this softball tournament, and this is in Seattle, right? Seattle has a huge homosexual population. When I got there, I didn't realize it was an all homosexual softball tournament. I didn't realize there was a homosexual softball league. But then after I worked the tournament, this league requested that I do more of their games. They liked when I was there, and it was weird because they're gay guys who are attracted to me and they're flirting with me. But the reason I went there and did it is because they paid more. And then, anyway. It's so, again, just funny story, but gay guys, like, God, it's just, when you live in a community where there's a lot of gay people, you'll realize if, like, you're a gay magnet. And it can be annoying, but it can also be kind of funny. And that's also why I just had this feeling about sports gematria. I think he's got the same type of thing as the other one I'm talking about. I think, like, sports gematria his whole life's about me. He watches every video. He's been, it's like, again, but these aren't things that like men do. This is like women stuff, right? So, again, understanding people's psychology and just not getting taken off the path, which sometimes I let my trolls and haters do. Anyway, drama. There's so much of it being contrived, and a lot of it just comes from like ulterior motives. And again, I wish we could just get people here who are about the work, doing the work, getting out the knowledge, being consistent. And again, people want community, but maybe some people have gotten into this community because they did sort of like the work, but then they were more about the community than the work. Again, I would want people who are promoting this work to be here primarily about the work, you know? A lot of people have fallen off because they got their feelings hurt, or like I said, Chigozi's a good example. He helped out for a number of years, but then he has the relationship drama, and then he just kind of falls off the wagon and then starts attacking me. Again, these people ultimately, I would say, were never here for the right reasons. So, anyhow, gotten way off tangent, but, you start reading the chat, that'll happen. Yeah, drama, I know. People love drama, and yeah, maybe I should just end this stream and come back and just talk more about just like how people need to really stop being so sensitive. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll come back here in a little bit. We'll do another stream, and we can talk about just how sensitive society's gotten rather than go way off topic to close out this live stream, because I would like people to watch. What I said in the beginning of this video is really what matters. All right, yeah, we'll do a little break, and then I'll be back, you guys. And again, for people who got their wrenches taken away, it wasn't anything personal. It's just I wanted fewer wrenches in the chat because I think it might help out. And also, it just like if people are banning people that shouldn't be banned, it'll be easier for me to see who's doing a bad job, and I can take away even more wrenches. But yeah, there are some people that I do think should have a wrench right now that don't, but I just wanted to slim it down, and I might give a few more back, so... All right, True Seeker. I will be back shortly, and we'll talk about drama. But you know what I want to do? I've been sitting too much. I'm making it a point to not sit for more than 2 hours at a time because I do that way too much. So I'm going to go do a little workout. I'm going to do a little workout. And if you're sitting too much, maybe you should do a little workout too. I'll probably be back in about 30 minutes to an hour to talk about sensitivity and drama. Something we all got to work on. Till next time, everybody.